So now we'll just go ahead and I won't hold us up. Rebecca is here and she'll get started, and we have Joe Doucette. Would you want to introduce yourself, guys?
Sure. Hi, I'm Joe. I am the admissions person for all the certificate programs, including this new one. So if you have questions about how to enroll in the certificate or anything else that has to do with enrollment or registration or payment, you can find me.
Hi, I'm Brenna. I'm the marketing coordinator for professional and continuing education and certificate programs. And I will say, Jackie, I don't know if you said your name.
I never do. I'm Jackie Knight. I'm the Director of Continuing Education. Doesn't everyone know that? Rebecca.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if you were finished, Brenna. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Morrison, and I'm the program director of this very new certificate program in digital media. It's great to have you guys here. I can tell you a little bit about myself before we get started, and I'll pull up some slides to give kind of an overview of the launch of this program. So I've been teaching for professional and continuing education for about 6 years now, mostly classes in lens-based media, photography, video, and digital design. I also teach for the photography and film video departments at MassArt, undergraduate and graduate courses, as well as in our low residency MFA program. And I've been around MassArt for over a decade in various capacities. Until this fall, I was director of graduate programming for our master's degree programs. And I currently work as co-director of our gallery in SOA, MassArt SOA. If you haven't been there, you should check it out. And we've been talking about this program for going on a year now, so I'm super excited about the launch that's happening this spring, and really excited to talk to you all tonight about what we have in mind, and then hopefully hear some questions from you. And if that means following up after we wrap as a group this evening, happy to make those plans as well. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share. We'll definitely have plenty of time for your questions at the end. Okay, so this is our new certificate program through CE at MassArt in digital media. I'm just going to give you guys a quick overview of kind of how this looks and what the program is structurally and the types of things that we're hoping to explore. So classes are 7 weeks long. And that's a new model for continuing ed at MassArt. If you've taken a la carte classes, which I know at least a couple of you have in the past, we've moved from a full semester model where 15 weeks or a very brief workshop were the options, to a kind of really nice sweet spot middle ground, where in the fall and spring semesters, classes happen one evening a week, or one meeting per week for 7 weeks. And so mostly those are happening on weekday evenings. And then occasionally we're open to the possibility of running some classes as needed on weekends. For this and many of our other certificate programs now, the requirements are online courses that are available completely remotely. So for anyone who's from outside the Boston area or not able to access campus in person, this certificate program and several others can be done totally remotely from afar. But we also do have classes that are electives that are available on campus. And so none of those are required courses, but if you are in the Boston area, and if you're interested in being in person for some of the 7-week classes that you might be doing in the near future, those options, including in this first spring session that's about to begin at the end of January, there are a handful of options for on-campus classes. And as Joe was kind of starting to say at the beginning there, we have an opt-in, a really sort of simple method for these non-credit certificates, including digital media, where you register for a class and you can choose at that time to opt into the certificate. which will sort of trigger communication from Joe and put you in touch with me and alert the team to the fact that you're hoping to matriculate into the program. And so you can register for an individual class without opting in. Just keep in mind, and I think we talk a little more about this later in the slide presentation, that you need to opt in after 2 classes. Only 2 classes that you take prior to that opt-in can be applied to the certificate should you choose to matriculate in that way. We have an incredibly flexible class and program planning method here. And so we are sort of seeing the courses that are being offered under the umbrella of the certificate as falling within these 2 broad concentrations or categories. On one side, we have lens-based media, so classes in photo and video, which of course are now becoming ever more related to each other as time goes on. And then on the other side, experience design classes. But there really is a lot of flexibility here, and you'll get to know that more if you explore the certificate further with this team. That in some ways you can mix and match the classes, and it really depends on your goals, on your skill set, on the experience that you have coming into the program, and what it is that you're looking to explore. And I think there are lots of points of intersection between the two. I think something that sets MassArt apart from other similar programs, certainly with classes offered online, is the faculty to student ratio in classes. So these are not huge classes. These are classes that are generally being capped at a lower number. And while there is certainly group work and lectures and presentations and technical demos in many of these classes, they really do offer you access to faculty individually, including certainly in every class that I teach, one-on-one time, feedback, discussion, planning, just getting to know your faculty and allowing them to get to know you and your goals and your plans. And then once students matriculate into this and other certificate programs, there is also, in addition to the faculty one-on-one time and feedback, one-on-one advising and program planning to kind of figure out what the best track is, what the best courses are for you at this time and in the future. And just sort of how to pace your program as well. This can certainly be done in a calendar year, this certificate program, but it can also be spread out over a longer period of time. It's not necessary that you take the same number of classes during each term. If there's something happening for you professionally or personally that means you drop down to a lower class load at a certain point in time, there is quite a bit of flexibility, and we can advise you in that area. And then finally, it's 8 classes to complete the certificate. And we'll look a little bit more at that course sequence and what that looks like exactly. But it is 8 of these 7-week classes that would allow you to complete this, and other certificates. So I'm going to start, well, I guess maybe I'll pause and just ask if anybody has questions now about anything that we just covered. I think we can do that here and there this evening. All right, I'm going to keep going, but please feel free to chat in questions if you want to keep something top of mind. So start with the lens-based media side of the program, which is sort of my particular area of focus and expertise as the director and as faculty. And just thinking about who this might be the right fit for, both the individual a la carte classes and also the program as a track and as a plan. And so certainly the core requirements of the lens-based side of the program allow for people to come in who really don't have technical experience in digital photography. If you've been using your phone for photographing and that's the extent of your technical knowledge, then you can certainly gain all of those foundational skills here. Although you can also be exempt from those foundational classes and start diving into some of the more advanced lens-based classwork if that's where you are in your own trajectory. So also serious amateurs who maybe have some part of the technical toolkit, but not all of it. Now with the 7-week course model, we split our photography and video classes, as you may have seen if you looked around at the CE website for the January term, into sort of 2 sections. One is production and one is post-production. And so this January in the first term, you can really learn sound and video production for moving image. image, or you can really dive deeply into the camera and the use of the camera and the production side of photography. And then in March, we offer the post-production side of those two things. And, you know, do want to say here that for the certificate in general, we do see this as a pathway to degree programs, to credit-bearing degree programs. So for people who are looking to skill build or sort of build a portfolio or get back into the swing of making in a particular area, with the idea that you might continue on to an undergraduate or graduate degree at MassArt or elsewhere, it definitely makes sense to start looking at these courses, these classes as a way in there. And while maybe some of the other photography programs at MassArt don't necessarily focus on the commercial side of the craft, this program definitely is about prepping students skill-wise to be able to sort of go out into the world and be ready to function as commercial photographers or videographers. And visual storytellers, documentarians, using really traditional methods. We have a faculty teaching video classes this fall who is, you know, really many years, many decades of experience as a video documentarian, but also thinking about new forms for video and film, documentary, et cetera, storytelling, including VR, 360 video, this kind of thing. And if you're already a lens-based artist, if you sort of wear that badge and that hat and you identify that way, it's possible that with advising, we'd find that you exempt out of the foundational requirements here and move right into the electives and upper level classes and then on to the capstone. And then also, I think the way that we've built out this program thus far really does invite people who are working as professionals in digital content creation, product marketing, social media marketing, and you're looking to hone a skill set around photo and video content creation, skill building in that area. I think that's it for this. I'm just going to pause quickly and see if anyone has a question related to the lens-based media side of things. Okay, great. So what you'll notice on the other side of the house here is that there is quite a bit of overlap. You know, some of the same students are prospective students are probably looking at both sides of the house and thinking about classes that fit into your goals. And so same thing on experience design, sort of a term that's been thrown around a lot over the last decade or so. And within this program, we really do think of it as any experience, as it says at the top, physical, digital, that considers a holistic user experience, audience journey, customer journey, et cetera, depending on what it is that you're using these skills for. And so same thing, find artists who already have a process that's primarily tactile, and you're looking to build in interactivity or digital components to your art practice. App and web developers, UX, UI, who are looking to update skills or learn new things. Maybe it's been a while since you were in school. Again, a pathway to degrees, absolutely. And really thinking in a broad, holistic way about experience design, including exhibition design and interactive object making and sculpture, industrial design, et cetera. So I think there's a lot that you can do here. And certainly there are classes on both sides of the certificate program that might apply to people. It's really about crafting and custom tailoring a program and a sequence that works for you. I'm just gonna check this question. Let's see. Well, I'm going to pause for questions here for a second, which is, will future classes be listed? CE classes aren't usually listed. JP, can you clarify what you mean by that question?
Sure, yeah. I mean, when I'm just signing up for CE classes, it seems like you sort of get the list of what's upcoming for that semester, you know, a couple of months ahead or something.
Mm-hmm.
But with this certificate program, will you be able to, will a prospective student be able to understand sort of beyond the next semester as far as
Oh, I see, sort of
what
longer
potential
term
classes to
planning.
take? Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe folks from CE can chime in here, Jackie, Joe, if I'm not covering this completely, but what I can say is that you'll see on the website, for example, under this and other certificates, that we've listed sort of which terms these classes are offered. And so in that sense, a sort of further out longer term planning, JP, yes, is possible here. I think that is what separates matriculating from taking these as a la carte classes, is being able to sort of look and talk through what the plan is in the future, and build your own plan out from there. Am I missing anything, folks, on how I responded to that? Okay, great. And then from Henry, can you apply any prior learning or professional experience in Lens Media to this certificate? Henry, what I can say in response to that is that it's a non-credit certificate program, and so it doesn't take transfer credit per se. You can apply classes done at MassArt through CE to the certificate once you opt in. But what you can apply in terms of your past experience, skill set, classes, et cetera, are what can result from that past experience is exemption from foundational level requirements to allow you to do use more of those 8 classes for upper level electives that are really choices you're making for really going deeper and doing a deeper dive into the area that you want to focus on. So no credit transfer per se in the way that you might in a credit bearing program, but it will definitely affect what you're able to be exempted from, and then what in turn you're able to study while you're here. And I just want to point out that there is a lot of flexibility, like I said before, and a lot of overlap between the 2 programs. I had a conversation this week with a student who will be starting this spring, who was interested in doing both sides, experience design and lens-based media. And what I can say is that every student who enters into the program will have advising and will tailor the program to the course sequence in a way that makes sense. But there are also a lot of classes, elective classes, that really apply to both sides. And so including my list interactive video at the top, because it's being offered in March and is listed on the website already. Here's a class that's, of course, obviously through the title related to the lens-based side of things, but it's also about immersion and interactivity, very much experience design as well. So there are definitely a lot of classes being offered that can't be sort of pigeonholed into one or the other, but apply to both, which is where a lot of the flexibility comes from. So Joe mentioned at the beginning of the session that it's a more casual, sort of straightforward opt-in process. And so just sharing a screenshot here for a class that's starting shortly, Michael Sheridan's digital video, camera and sound class that begins this month. And you can see that if you've taken CE classes before, you've had this option to register, maybe for credit or not for credit. In the case of these classes, you can register for the workshop individually or at the same price. Register and at that time opt into the certificate, which just triggers the communication and advising process with Joe, with myself, et cetera. So that lets us know that you're interested in committing and matriculating, and lets us know that we need to reach out to you and talk through the planning. And so, absolutely can try a class to start and do that a couple of times before you make that decision. And then after a couple of classes, or right away, if you're already ready and you just choose that second registration button and opt in at the same time. And like I said, 2 classes can count toward the certificate even before you opt in and officially matriculate. And then just to talk through some of the benefits, because we're really excited to sort of house all these new classes and return to some classes that haven't run in a while under the heading of the digital media certificate. But there are some particular benefits to matriculating into the program rather than doing a collection of a la carte classes. One is the one-on-one advising and planning, and really working with me as your program director on figuring out the best way to proceed to get you the skills and the knowledge and the community building that you really want as part of your decision to join us. We do have some perks when you register for classes at MassArt. Some of you may be already familiar with this. which is that we have Adobe Creative Cloud that's available to, the full suite is available to all students who have an active MassArt Net ID. And what's nice about matriculating is just that you're staying in consistent classes and therefore not losing access or having to sort of reactivate your account with MassArt or with the software. So that's something that's nice. And the Adobe suite is, it was kind of a silver lining of the pandemic that all MassArt students from all programs were suddenly able to access the full software suite from anywhere through our enterprise account. But we do also, in the case of some classes, have licenses for other softwares outside of Adobe that are being used in a particular class that get licensed in a limited way through the college. But those other software suites would generally be related to a particular class and available only during the time that that class is running. But our faculty, every conversation I've had with faculty as we've been working to get the certificate off the ground, is I think we're sort of all in agreement that we're all looking for open source software, browser-based software, keeping things simple and inexpensive, if not free, for students wherever possible. Of course, sometimes, you know, to sort of learn industry standard software, you need to buy subscriptions or do a short-term or long-term subscription or trial, but we really have that in mind as we're course planning. And then just keeping, you know, active at MassArt means keeping that net ID and email active, being part of the community, getting announcements from the college, being in the fold and knowing what's going on, including things like visiting artist talks, many of which are online, these kinds of things that you become more aware of as you come into the MassArt community more officially. And then for digital media, you will cap off the program in your final class with a portfolio, which may be you one-on-one with your advisor and faculty, or depending on who else is alongside you in the program at the time when you finish, possibly you and another student or more. And that's really a portfolio development class. So for those of you who are here to develop a portfolio for your professional work, for degree program applications, et cetera, this is really a 7-week deep dive into taking what you've learned, synthesizing it, putting it into play for a personal project, one or more, so that you can really start sort of moving ahead with the skills that you've gained. This next slide is, we've been getting several questions about this since we went live on the website with the digital media certificate information. So I just want to touch on this briefly. It's a lot of text, but I want to share it with you because it does seem like students who are thinking about the program have this in mind. We have 2 foundational requirements that are offered right now in the summer only. The program is very new, and so we're still sort of working out the needs and figuring out the number of students who need which classes when. But right now we will offer these 2 classes in the first and second summer 7-week term of 2024. And just to kind of give you an overview, we'll share a PDF of the slide deck with you after tonight. So you'll be able to return to the information shared on screen here. But I just want to give an overview. The first foundational requirement, digital fluency, we imagine that probably the majority of students who matriculate into the digital media program may not need this class. It really is about understanding big picture of hardware, software relationships, backups, navigating an interface, working efficiently on the platform that you're using, be it Mac, PC, Linux, et cetera, and really just making sure that people are agile and understand how to navigate these environments. And so if you're working digitally in your professional work and this is already part of your day-to-day life and you've got that agility already, it's likely you would be exempted. It's handled on a case-by-case basis. So if you join the program, I'll meet with you and we'll talk through whether or not that makes sense for you. And then the second requirement, digital making, really starts moving into design and artist applications for digital environments. And so if you're digitally savvy, but you haven't used a lot of visual software, and you want to sort of understand this Adobe Creative Cloud and some of the other related software, and you could use a little bit of honing there. If you're in the room right now and you don't know the difference between a vector or a pixel-based graphic, that's a really good sort of litmus test for whether or not that's a class that you would want to take. Yeah, JP, I see your hand.
Sorry, yeah, thank you. How strictly curriculum are these two classes? In other words, if you do have some digital fluency but want to get some more, is the class flexible enough that it can cater both to beginners and not?
Definitely. I'd say every time that I've taught the digital making class, certainly digital fluency is really a foundational class, so that doesn't have as much leeway in terms of custom tailoring. But digital making, for sure, I think it's easy to sort of have this be applicable and useful to many different skill set levels. JP, having worked with you in a few different classes, my sense is you probably have that skill set already. You've probably been doing enough work in Adobe and other visual software for the last few years that the information might be repetitive for you, but we could talk it through for sure, and talk about what's on the current syllabus for the 7-week class and whether it makes sense for you to be refreshed in that way. I will say that for someone like you or a student in a similar situation, I think, I personally really believe in take the class if you need it, particularly if you need one-on-one assistance and guidance and feedback. I think in your case, JP, I might advise you to review the class videos. And just make sure you're up to speed on that information because you've taken so many CE classes in digital media over the last few years. So does that answer your question, JP?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question about these foundational requirements specifically? It seemed like it's something on people's minds. And then I'm just going to pull up here the foundational course sequence. And so I just talk this through with you a little bit. We really will tailor this to your needs and your skill set and what you're coming in with. But just kind of refreshing here, information that's currently on the website about during which terms these classes are offered. And the kind of sequence of things. Although I will say, for example, almost all of these classes can be taken out of sequence. So it's again something that has to be discussed. Like there are cases where someone very brand new to digital photography, say, I'd really encourage you as a student to take the camera before taking post-production. But our current video faculty is really open to the idea of editing and production being taken out of sequence. He feels that those are interchangeable, and I'm in agreement, knowing his teaching style. Similarly, digital media and design and intro to experience design as the core requirements on the experience design side of the house offered in fall and spring can absolutely be taken out of sequence. We'll offer intro to experience design in March in the second spring term this year, and absolutely jump in and take that and then follow up with the digital media and design in the fall. Those things can be taken out of sequence. Students who are brand new to the digital landscape, really just getting their bearings, might be asked to consider a summer start date when they can take fluency and digital making in the beginning. And again, exemptions, it's really about meeting with me in consultation with our other experienced design faculty and talking through what your background has been, looking at other classes you've taken, looking at your work and your portfolio, your image files, your video files, etc., your projects, and getting a sense of what might be repetitive and figuring out a path that will work best for you and really get you going with the things you need, refreshing you when you need to be, but letting you move on to the stuff that you really want to focus in on as soon as possible. So I think that's the last slide in the deck, and we're just after 6:30. I'm just going to quickly pull up the website and just pull up the FAQs. I don't know what people have already looked at and maybe what you might need additional clarification on any of these FAQs. But I can just quickly pull these up before we move on to taking any questions you all have. The certificate cost is the tuition and fees page talks it through. You've seen it. Most of the classes at 7 weeks are $150 for this program, and that link is live for you to look at. You definitely do not have to pay for the program all at once. You pay class by class. There's no advance payment. It's per credit, per class rather, sorry. I'm talking in grad programs lingo right now. The program is not eligible for financial aid, and the duration of time that it takes you to make your way through your program is dependent on your goals, and the time you have available can certainly be done in a year, but doesn't need to be done in 1 calendar year, if that doesn't make sense for you. I do want to talk a little bit about equipment because we didn't touch on that in the deck, and just say that, you know, I think many of us in recent years have moved into a place of being incredibly resourceful, particularly with teaching online, and becoming more and more open to what qualifies as professional equipment and what people can use to make digital media work. Sometimes it's a laptop only. But again, it's something that depends on your goals. Regardless of whether you're local and doing some electives in person, you are going to have classes online. And so what's really important is having a computer that can run the software you're using, and that has a reasonable internet connection and a webcam, so that you can be present in class. And then, you know, as time goes on in your program and as you dig deeper into your area of focus, recommendations may be made for equipment you might want to consider investing in. For people who are local, we do have a limited amount of equipment that's available through your faculty and through me as program director to sign out. And that's something that we also handle, at least for now, on a case-by-case basis. JP, I see your question about access to labs. There is not, I don't think, maybe Jackie can confirm this for me, but I think that the access to labs is limited to when you're doing a class that's in person. Is that true, Jackie? I don't actually know that.
I'm not sure. So that's
Yeah, I
something
don't know
we
that
have
we
to find out.
definitively say
Yeah.
that. I will say that when we started the new last summer when I was teaching a 15-week online class, we did come onto campus and use campus facilities for printing, for archival inkjet printing and scanning. And so I think maybe sort of don't have a hard policy in place yet.
I will say that the the students in the CDC program, the Communications Design Certificate, which is a fully online certificate, do have access to the labs.
Okay.
I'm not
And so-
sure that it applies for this certificate, but I mean, that's a fully online program as well. So,
Yep.
but it's once again, it's something you'd have to sign up for if it were access. It's not just walk in, you need to schedule a time.
Totally. Yeah.
That's at least they do. I can't speak to this certificate.
Sure. Yeah.
I
I think
haven't
we're
hammered
still,
that out yet, but yeah,
still
that's
building the
how it
ship,
works.
right?
Yep.
Were you gonna say something, Jackie?
I was just going to say it may be tied to being registered, but I'm not sure. So I will find out anyway, and we'll give that information.
I wonder if someone who's not screen sharing right now might be able to add to the chat the Universal Tools page link from the MassArt website, because I will say that these tools are not affiliated with a particular department. They are, as they sound, universal tools that many of which were launched when the Design and Media Center was building was opened in 2016. Things like a sound recording studio that you should have access to just by having an active MassArt Net ID. But it's a good question that you're asking, JP, and for us to get clearer language around policy. And then can you talk more about electives? Yes. Is there a particular question about electives, or you want me to start with?
Not necessarily, although the slide before you happened to have the image from a class that I wasn't listed on those core classes, that interactive video.
That's right. And so they're in the spring classes. I'll just go back here to the I'll just go back to the digital media page. So yeah, let me talk you through this a little bit. So what we're in the process of doing, JP and others who have this in mind, is thinking about all 7-week CE classes and which can be applicable to the digital media certificate. So for example, during this launch right now for the spring, there are a couple of classes not listed under digital media yet that actually would apply as elective classes. And so my sort of role in the coming weeks is to make sure that anything offered in a particular term is listed, cross-listed with digital media, but pretty much anything in photography, video, animation, digital design, web design can fall under the umbrella of the certificate program and function as an elective class. And so, yes, this first class here, for example, the Creative Cloud, the next generation tools, taught by Jason Fairchild, who's been teaching this class that's kind of tangentially related to the communication design certificate, can function absolutely as a digital media class, and it's listed there. Same with, yes, you're right, we had design for 3D printing, which is an on-campus class. Is also, it's mostly about the digital tools related to design for object making, but actually involves some object making in the MassArt Fab Labs. Absolutely functions as a digital media certificate, and same class, and same with interactive video. And what faculty have been asked to do at this point, like Sebastian Gonzalez Quintero, who's teaching interactive video, who's amazing, by the way, like incredible artist and educator, is to approach these classes in a way that makes them accessible to students who haven't had the foundational requirements. So the idea is that there's some sort of launch to the class at the beginning that gets students on their feet, regardless of whether they've had those other classes. So anything, of course, that's listed here, JP, functions, and these are, I guess these are mostly core requirements, except for Sebastian's class, the interactive video class, the Adobe Creative Cloud, and the design for 3D printing. But if you go to animation, for example, I can tell you that pretty much anything offered in animation would function as an elective. So hopefully by the second spring term, everything that can be considered a digital media elective will be cross-listed. If there's ever a question and something you want to take that's not, you can just reach out to us, to myself, or to the other CE folks who are in the room here today. I think that's what I have, and I think we can move on to any other questions you guys have. Yeah, let me stop my share while we look at Henry's questions. I took CE classes, documentary film school. Yeah, would any of those function in the new? Henry, they wouldn't sort of count toward the 8 classes that you need for the digital media certificate, because the certificate didn't exist when the film school, the Summer Film Academy, was still running. And it was a different model of class, a different duration. But what it does mean is that if your interest, Henry, is in lens-based media, you're moving on to advanced level classes unless you opt to refresh. You probably studied with Michael Sheridan, who's teaching the classes this spring, because I know Michael was this sort of, yeah, he's great. He's that kind of primary driving force behind those summer film school classes. So it means that, you know, if you're putting those skills to work and you feel really up to date on video production and post and editing, then you can move on to interactive video or other classes that you want to take that are elective classes. But yeah, it's not, there's mostly, unless it's a class you register for now, before opting in, it wouldn't sort of apply, other than exempting you from having to take those core requirements so that you can move on to the, you know, more sort of deep dive stuff that you want to explore. Any questions?
I just want to say that, Rebecca, you mentioned the universal tools, and there seems to be like you have to log in for that. There seems to be login access for that. But here's I just put a page, there's a link with some resources, but there are more resources, but you need to be enrolled or in a class or something to access that stuff.
Oh, I think I found it, Jackie. I'm not sure if. Here's one. Tell me if people are able to access that. Yeah, so again, it's like MassArt, MassArt Net ID and current enrollment in a class. But we appreciate the questions around that because I think that those policies do need to be articulated more explicitly on the web. All
And-
questions. I'm gonna go ahead and put my email into the chat here. I know Brenna put it up onto the website on the how to apply page. But I just want to make sure that people in the room now who haven't seen that know how to reach me directly. Everyone from MassArt who's in this room right now is very knowledgeable and can help you and answer questions for you for sure. And if you feel like you're ready to start thinking about advising and really coming up with a program plan, or at least figuring out maybe what you might want to take this spring or summer, if you're thinking about making that move soon, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly and we'll start to talk some of that through.
Sorry, just a question back to the lab listing that you sent here. I guess, I assume then it does not include the photography darkroom labs.
Definitely not, no. The photography labs are reserved for photography undergraduate, graduate, and post-bac students. JP, I can't remember right now, I apologize, but when you started taking classes, were we already online? Or were you in classes in person for a
No,
time?
it was just online, yeah.
Okay, so there's the photography, there are a lot of labs around MassArt for printing and post-production, etc. So in the Kennedy building on MassArt's campus in the 6th floor is where all of photography is housed. It's sort of like very tight knit on that one floor, and there is a lab for graduate students and and 2 labs for undergraduate students, and that really is that equipment and those facilities are really limited to photography majors and grads specifically. But there's another lab that is one of the universal tools that also has Canon and Epson archival inkjet printers, including special surfaces, papers for printing and materials, many Mac labs that are housed, that house animation, photography, and video classes that are actually sort of outfitted with more up-to-date equipment than the photography specific labs. And those are open to the community who's actively in a class, online or not. That MassArt Tower digital lab is open to the community more generally. So you can accomplish the same things. There's a difference in structure, and I know because I know you're also considering the post-bac in photography. So I just talk that through a little bit and say that the photography post-bac and grad programs bake in a fee to their tuition, which covers the materials costs for the labs so that photography grads and undergrads buy their own paper, but don't pay for ink. I mean, they pay for it, but they pay for it as a fee that's baked in. Whereas in the universal tool lab I'm talking about, students just use a system paper cut where they pay per inch for materials because there's no fee. And so you're just paying for what you make as you go and sort of re-upping those funds in time. The photography labs, it's a slightly better deal, but not always, actually. You really have to print a lot to really make use of that lab fee. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions, anyone? Well, thank you for taking the time. It's great to see some of your faces and hear your questions, and please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us if you have further questions or want to start talking some planning through. Thanks, guys.